Warn, after this rampage, they'll chase you like never before. There comes a moment in every person's life when everything changes, not because the world suddenly becomes different, but because they do. This is the moment when they stop begging for attention, stop chasing people who keep running away, stop proving their worth to those who refuse to see it, and finally discover the incredible power that has been quietly waiting within them all along. What you're about to hear is not about revenge, manipulation, or making someone suffer. It is about something far greater. It is about becoming so transformed, so confident, so emotionally unshakable, that the people who once ignored you can no longer ignore your presence. The warning in today's message is not for you. It is for those who underestimated you. Because once this inner transformation begins, once your energy shifts from desperation to certainty, from fear to confidence, from lack to abundance, everything around you starts responding differently. Most people spend years believing they must chase love, chase success, chase recognition, and chase approval. They exhaust themselves trying to convince others of their value, hoping that one more message, one more explanation, or one more sacrifice will finally make someone appreciate them. But the greatest secret of personal magnetism is this: the harder you chase, the faster what you desire runs away. Life has a mysterious way of rewarding those who stop clinging and start becoming. The moment you become complete within yourself, you begin attracting what once seemed impossible to reach. Imagine waking up one morning without the need to check who texted you, who viewed your profile, who remembered you, or who forgot you. Imagine walking into every room carrying an invisible confidence that speaks before you ever say a word. Imagine being so focused on your own purpose that the opinions of others lose their power over your emotion. That is when the true rampage begins. Not a rampage of destruction, but a rampage of unstoppable personal growth. Every limiting belief falls. Every fear loses its grip. Every insecurity begins to disappear. And in its place rises a version of you that even you hardly recognize. Here is the irony of life. People often value what they believe they can lose. When you stop making yourself constantly available, when you stop seeking validation, and when your happiness no longer depends on someone else's attention, something remarkable happens. Those who once overlooked you begin wondering what changed. Those who took your kindness for granted suddenly remember your value. Those who believed you would always wait begin realizing you have moved forward. They are not chasing the old version of you anymore. They are chasing the person you have become. But be careful. This message is not permission to play emotional games or manipulate people into wanting you. Temporary attention gained through manipulation fades quickly. Genuine attraction, however, is born from authentic transformation. Real power comes from becoming someone whose peace cannot be disturbed, whose confidence cannot be stolen, and whose purpose cannot be distracted. The most magnetic person in any room is rarely the loudest. It is the one who knows exactly who they are without needing anyone else to confirm it. So today, prepare yourself for a journey unlike any you've taken before. We're going to uncover the hidden shifts that turn ordinary people into unforgettable ones. We'll reveal why emotional independence creates irresistible attraction, why silence often speaks louder than endless explanations, why personal growth changes every relationship around you, and why the greatest comeback is not proving others wrong, but proving to yourself that you were always enough. If you're ready to stop chasing and start attracting, if you're ready to replace fear with certainty, insecurity with confidence, and desperation with purpose, then stay with me until the very end. Because after this inner rampage begins, your life will never look the same again, and neither will the way people look at you. The rampage begins when you stop chasing and start choosing yourself. Everything changes the moment you make one decision: to stop chasing what keeps running from you and start building the person you were always meant to become. This is where the real rampage begins. Not a rampage fueled by anger, revenge, or the desire to make someone regret losing you, but a powerful inner revolution that destroys insecurity, fear, and dependence. Too many people spend years believing that happiness exists somewhere outside themselves. They think if one particular person would finally love them, if one opportunity would finally appear, or if one dream would finally come true, then they would feel complete. But that way of living places your entire future in someone else's hands. The truth is that the strongest, most magnetic people are those who no longer wait for permission to feel worthy. They wake up every day with the quiet certainty that their value is not determined by who notices them, who applauds them, or who chooses to stay. They understand that self-worth is an inside job, and once that realization takes root, every part of life begins to shift. Imagine carrying yourself with the confidence of someone who no longer fears rejection, because they have already accepted themselves. Imagine speaking without trying to impress, giving without expecting anything in return, and loving without losing your identity. That kind of energy cannot be ignored. It changes the atmosphere before a single word is spoken. People begin sensing that something is different about you. They may not be able to explain it, but they feel it. You are no longer seeking attention, you naturally command it. You are no longer asking to be valued, you embody value. This is the paradox that surprises so many people. The moment you stop trying to convince others that you matter is often the very moment they begin to recognize your importance. Why? Because confidence is attractive, while desperation pushes people away. Confidence says, I know who I am. Desperation says, please tell me who I am. The world responds differently to those two messages. When your happiness depends entirely on another person's behavior, you become emotionally fragile. Every delayed message feels like rejection. Every unanswered call feels like abandonment. Every moment of silence becomes a reason to question your worth. But when you choose yourself first, those emotional chains begin to break. You realize that another person's inability to recognize your value does not reduce your value. A diamond remains a diamond even if someone mistakes it for an ordinary stone. The same is true for you. Your worth has never depended on someone else's opinion. It has always existed within you, waiting to be discovered. Choosing yourself does not mean becoming selfish or uncaring. It means refusing to abandon your peace just to gain someone's temporary approval. It means setting healthy boundaries, protecting your energy, and investing in your own growth with the same dedication you once gave to chasing people who could never complete you. Every book you read, every skill you develop, every healthy habit you build, every challenge you overcome becomes another brick in the foundation of a stronger identity. Slowly, almost unnoticed, you become someone who walks differently, speaks differently, thinks differently, and believes differently. Your eyes carry more certainty. Your voice carries more calm. Your presence carries more strength. This transformation is not loud. It does not require announcing your success to the world. Real growth is often quiet. It happens in the mornings when no one sees your discipline. It happens during lonely nights when you choose healing over bitterness. It happens every time you refuse to return to old patterns, simply because they feel familiar. Those invisible victories become the source of visible confidence. Then something remarkable begins to happen. The same people who once overlooked you start paying attention. Those who assumed you would always be available suddenly realize you have become unavailable, not because you are playing games, but because your life is now filled with purpose. They notice your peace. They notice your independence. They notice that you no longer seek validation from them. Ironically, this is often when they begin seeking validation from you. They wonder what changed. They ask why you seem happier. They become curious, because your energy no longer revolves around chasing them. But here is the greatest lesson of all. By the time they begin chasing you, your deepest victory has already been won. You are no longer living for their approval. Whether they return or not is no longer the center of your story. You have discovered something far more valuable than attention. You have discovered yourself. That is the true rampage. It is the destruction of every limiting belief that once convinced you that you were incomplete. It is the collapse of every fear that kept you waiting for someone else to decide your future. It is the birth of a person who understands that genuine attraction begins with genuine self-respect. When you become the source of your own confidence, peace, and purpose, you stop living as a seeker and begin living as a creator. And once that transformation becomes your reality, people cannot help but notice. Not because you demanded their attention, but because authentic confidence has a magnetic force that no performance can imitate. The greatest revenge is not making people regret losing you. The greatest victory is becoming so fulfilled that you no longer need anyone to your silence. Creates more curiosity than your explanations. Ever could one of the greatest mistakes people make is believing that every misunderstanding must be explained, every rejection must be challenged, and every silence must be filled with more words. They think that if they simply say enough, love enough, prove enough, or sacrifice enough, someone will finally understand their heart. But life has a strange way of teaching the opposite lesson. The more you chase people with endless explanations, the less they hear you. The more you try to convince someone of your worth, the more you unknowingly communicate that you are unsure of it yourself. There comes a moment when true strength is found not in speaking louder but in becoming quieter. This is not the silence of defeat, bitterness, or emotional withdrawal. It is the silence of confidence. It is the calm that comes from knowing that your value does not need constant defense. It is the peace that comes from realizing that those who genuinely want to understand you will never require endless persuasion, while those determined to misunderstand you will never be convinced by 1,000 explanations. Think about most emotionally powerful people you have ever met. They rarely spend their energy arguing about who they are. They do not chase approval or beg for recognition. Their confidence is not built on public opinion, but on private conviction. They understand that words can be ignored, but consistent character cannot. They let their actions speak with a voice louder than arguments ever could. This is where your transformation begins. Instead of wasting your strength explaining your intentions to people who have already made up their minds, you redirect that energy toward becoming the person you admire. Every hour once spent worrying about someone else's opinion becomes an hour invested in your own growth. Every emotional conversation that led nowhere is replaced by quiet discipline. Every desperate attempt to hold on to someone is replaced by a commitment to hold on to your own peace. That silent decision changes everything. Silence has a remarkable effect because it interrupts expectations. People become accustomed to predictable patterns. They expect you to send another message, make another excuse, apologize again, or keep proving your loyalty. When those patterns suddenly disappear, curiosity takes their place. They begin asking themselves questions they never considered before. Why aren't they reacting anymore? Why do they seem so peaceful? What changed? These questions arise not because you manipulated anyone, but because genuine change always attracts attention. When someone who was once emotionally dependent becomes emotionally grounded, the difference is impossible to ignore. The quiet confidence they carry becomes more compelling than all the explanations they once gave. This does not mean ignoring people out of pride or pretending not to care. Authentic silence is never a performance. It is an expression of emotional maturity. It is choosing not to argue with every opinion, not to defend yourself against every accusation, and not to interrupt your own healing, simply because someone else refuses to understand your journey. There is incredible freedom in recognizing that not everyone deserves unlimited access to your thoughts, your emotions, or your energy. Protecting your peace is not selfish, it is necessary. Every time you choose peace over unnecessary conflict, you strengthen your inner foundation. Every time you refuse to chase closure from someone unwilling to give it, you create your own closure through self-respect. The world often mistakes loudness for strength, but true strength is usually quiet. A mountain never announces its greatness, yet it stands unmoved through every storm. The ocean never argues about its depth, yet everyone recognizes its power. Likewise, a person who has found inner stability does not need to constantly remind others of their worth. Their calm presence speaks for them. Their consistency becomes their reputation. Their confidence becomes their language. People notice because authenticity has a magnetic quality that cannot be manufactured. It is impossible to fake genuine peace for very long. Either you possess it or you do not. And when you do, Others naturally feel its influence. Ironically, your silence often accomplishes what your words never could. It creates space for others to reflect. When you stop trying to control every outcome, people are left alone with their own thoughts. They begin remembering your kindness, your loyalty, your value, and your presence without you reminding them. Sometimes absence reveals appreciation more effectively than constant availability ever could. But here is the important truth. This should never become your goal. Your goal is not to make someone miss you. Your goal is to become so emotionally healthy that your happiness is no longer dependent on whether they do. That is where true freedom begins. Whether people come back, stay away, apologize, or remain silent no longer determines your emotional state because your identity is no longer built on their decision. This is the warning hidden within this transformation. When you stop explaining yourself to everyone, when you stop begging to be understood, and when you start living with quiet confidence, people begin seeing you differently. The very calm they once overlooked becomes the quality they admire. The independence they once underestimated becomes the mystery they want to understand. They are drawn not because you demanded their attention, but because your peace has become impossible to ignore. By then, however, the greatest miracle has already happened. You have become someone who no longer needs to chase acceptance because you have already accepted yourself. That quiet certainty becomes your greatest strength, your strongest attraction, and the unmistakable sign that the inner rampage has truly begun. Regret anything. That is the moment your life changes forever, and that is the moment the chase quietly begins. Your silence creates more curiosity than your explanations. Ever could one of the greatest mistakes people make is believing that every misunderstanding must be explained, every rejection must be challenged, and every silence must be filled with more words. They think that if they simply say enough, love enough, prove enough, or sacrifice enough, someone will finally understand their heart. But life has a strange way of teaching the opposite lesson. The more you chase people with endless explanations, the less they hear you. The more you try to convince someone of your worth, the more you unknowingly communicate that you are unsure of it yourself. There comes a moment when true strength is found not in speaking louder, but in becoming quieter. This is not the silence of defeat, bitterness, or emotional withdrawal. It is the silence of confidence. It is the calm that comes from knowing that your value does not need constant defense. It is the peace that comes from realizing that those who genuinely want to understand you will never require endless persuasion, while those determined to misunderstand you will never be convinced by 1,000 explanations. Think about the most emotionally powerful people you have ever met. They rarely spend their energy arguing about who they are. They do not chase approval or beg for recognition. Their confidence is not built on public opinion, but on private conviction. They understand that words can be ignored, but consistent character cannot. They let their actions speak with a voice louder than arguments ever could. This is where your transformation begins. Instead of wasting your strength explaining your intentions to people who have already made up their minds, you redirect that energy toward becoming the person you admire. Every hour once spent worrying about someone else's opinion becomes an hour invested in your own growth. Every emotional conversation that led nowhere is replaced by quiet discipline. Every desperate attempt to hold on to someone is replaced by a commitment to hold on to your own peace. That silent decision changes everything. Silence has a remarkable effect because it interrupts expectations. People become accustomed to predictable patterns. They expect you to send another message, make another excuse, apologize again, or keep proving your loyalty. When those patterns suddenly disappear, curiosity takes their place. They begin asking themselves questions they never considered before. Why aren't they reacting anymore? Why do they seem so peaceful? What changed? These questions arise not because you manipulated anyone, but because genuine change always attracts attention. When someone who was once emotionally dependent becomes emotionally grounded, the difference is impossible to ignore. The quiet confidence they carry becomes more compelling than all the explanations they once gave. This does not mean ignoring people out of pride or pretending not to care. Authentic silence is never a performance. It is an expression of emotional maturity. It is choosing not to argue with every opinion, not to defend yourself against every accusation, and not to interrupt your own healing simply because someone else refuses to understand your journey. There is incredible freedom in recognizing that not everyone deserves unlimited access to your thoughts, your emotions, or your energy. Protecting your peace is not selfish, it is necessary. Every time you choose peace over unnecessary conflict, you strengthen your inner foundation. Every time you refuse to chase closure from someone unwilling to give it, you create your own closure through self-respect. The world often mistakes loudness for strength, but true strength is usually quiet. A mountain never announces its greatness, yet it stands unmoved through every storm. The ocean never argues about its depth, yet everyone recognizes its power. Likewise, a person who has found inner stability does not need to constantly remind others of their worth. Their calm presence speaks for them. Their consistency becomes their reputation. Their confidence becomes their language. People notice because authenticity has a magnetic quality that cannot be manufactured. It is impossible to fake genuine peace for very long. Either you possess it or you do not, and when you do, others naturally feel its influence. Ironically, your silence often accomplishes what your words never could. It creates space for others to reflect. When you stop trying to control every outcome, people are left alone with their own thoughts. They begin remembering your kindness, your loyalty, your value, and your presence without you reminding them. Sometimes absence reveals appreciation more effectively than constant availability ever could. But here is the important truth. This should never become your goal. Your goal is not to make someone miss you. Your goal is to become so emotionally healthy that your happiness is no longer dependent on whether they do. That is where true freedom begins. Whether people come back, stay away, apologize, or remain silent no longer determines your emotional state because your identity is no longer built on their decisions. This is the warning hidden within this transformation. When you stop explaining yourself to everyone, when you stop begging to be understood, and when you start living with quiet confidence, people begin seeing you differently. The very calm they once overlooked becomes the quality they admire. The independence they once underestimated becomes the mystery they want to understand. They are drawn not because you demanded their attention, but because your peace has become impossible to ignore. By then, however, the greatest miracle has already happened. You have become someone who no longer needs to chase acceptance, because you have already accepted yourself. That quiet certainty becomes your greatest strength, your strongest attraction, and the unmistakable sign that the inner rampage has truly begun, becomes so valuable that your absence speaks louder than your presence. There is a profound truth that many people discover only after years of disappointment. People often fail to appreciate what is constantly available, but they begin to recognize its value when it is no longer within reach. This does not mean you should disappear to punish someone or withdraw your presence to manipulate emotions. Instead, it means you should become so deeply committed to your own growth that your life naturally expands beyond the need to constantly seek attention from others. The greatest transformation begins when your focus shifts away from trying to be noticed and toward becoming a person of genuine substance. When your days become filled with purpose, discipline, learning, self-respect, and inner peace, something extraordinary happens. Your identity is no longer built around who calls you, who texts you, or who remembers you. Your identity becomes rooted in who you are when no one is watching. That quiet strength creates a presence so powerful that even your absence leaves an unforgettable impression. Many people spend enormous amounts of energy trying to become unforgettable through words, appearance, or constant communication. They believe that staying in someone's mind requires always being visible. Yet the opposite is often true. What people remember most is not the person who constantly demanded attention, but the one whose character left a lasting impact. Think about the individuals who have influenced your own life. Chances are, It was not simply because they talked the most or tried the hardest to impress you. It was because they carried themselves with authenticity, consistency, kindness, wisdom, or confidence. Their value came from who they were, not from how loudly they advertised themselves. The same principle applies to your own life. When you invest in becoming emotionally mature, mentally resilient, spiritually grounded, and purpose driven, your influence begins to extend far beyond your physical presence. This is why personal growth is the most powerful response to disappointment. Instead of allowing rejection to define you, let it refine you. Every setback can become a lesson. Every closed door can become an invitation to discover a new path. Every heartbreak can become the beginning of a stronger relationship with yourself. While others remain focused on what they have lost, you become focused on what you are becoming. You begin reading books that expand your thinking. You develop habits that strengthen your body and mind. You pursue goals that inspire you instead of merely distracting you. You learn to enjoy your own company rather than fearing solitude. Slowly, your confidence stops depending on external applause because your progress becomes its own reward. You wake each morning knowing that you are building a life that reflects your highest values, not someone else's expectations. As this transformation continues, your energy changes in ways that are impossible to fake. You no longer enter conversations hoping to be accepted. You enter them simply as yourself. You no longer feel pressured to prove your worth because you have already recognized it. There is a calm assurance in your voice, a steadiness in your decisions, and a peace in your spirit that others cannot ignore. People begin to notice that you no longer react to every criticism, every delay, or every disappointment. Instead of becoming defensive, you remain composed. Instead of seeking validation, you offer genuine kindness without expecting anything in return. That quiet confidence becomes one of your greatest strengths because it reflects a person who has learned to value themselves regardless of circumstances. Then something remarkable begins to unfold. The people who once overlooked your presence start noticing your absence. They remember the encouragement you gave, the loyalty you showed, the peace you carried, and the consistency you demonstrated. They begin comparing others to the person you have become, not because you demanded recognition, but because authentic value cannot remain hidden forever. Just as people recognize the importance of light when darkness arrives, they often recognize the significance of a person's presence only after it is gone. Yet by this stage, your perspective has already changed. You are no longer measuring your life by whether someone misses you. Your greatest joy comes from knowing that you have become someone you genuinely respect. This is the difference between seeking attention and creating impact. Attention is temporary. It rises and falls with trends, emotions, and circumstances. Impact, however, remains long after the moment has passed. A person who lives with integrity, compassion, discipline, and purpose leaves an imprint on the hearts of others that cannot easily be erased. That is the kind of value you should pursue. Become the person whose words bring encouragement, whose actions inspire trust, whose presence brings peace, and whose absence reminds others of what genuine character looks like. Such value is not created overnight. It is built through countless daily decisions to grow rather than complain, to forgive rather than become bitter, to learn rather than remain comfortable, and to believe in yourself even when no one else seems to. The warning in this message is not that people will chase you because you played a clever game. The warning is that once you become truly valuable from the inside out, the world begins responding to you differently. Opportunities appear where there were once obstacles. Respect replaces indifference. Curiosity replaces neglect. Relationships become healthier because you no longer accept less than what aligns with your self-respect. Most importantly, you discover that the greatest word of personal transformation is not having others pursue you. It is becoming free from the need for anyone to complete you. When your absence speaks louder than your presence, it is because your life has become a testimony of authenticity, strength, and purpose. That kind of influence cannot be forced, purchased, or imitated. It is earned through the quiet, daily commitment to becoming the best version of yourself. And once that journey begins, the chase that follows is simply a reflection of the extraordinary person you have become. The energy you radiate determines who comes running toward you. Everything in life responds to the energy you consistently project. Whether you realize it or not, people often sense your emotional state long before they analyze your words. You can smile while carrying fear, speak confidently while secretly doubting yourself, or appear successful while feeling empty inside. Eventually, your inner world reveals itself through your actions, your decisions, your habits, and the atmosphere you create around you. This is why true transformation never begins on the outside. It begins in the unseen places of the heart and mind. The greatest mistake many people make is trying to change how others see them without first changing how they see themselves. They buy new clothes, post carefully chosen pictures, say all the right things, and hope that admiration will fill the emptiness within. Yet no amount of external attention can permanently satisfy an internal belief that says, I am not enough. That belief quietly influences every relationship, every conversation, and every opportunity. It causes people to seek constant reassurance instead of developing lasting confidence. But the moment you replace that belief with genuine self-respect, your entire energy begins to shift. And with that shift comes a completely different response from the world around you. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to attract opportunities wherever they go? They are not necessarily the richest, the loudest, or the most talented person in the room. Instead, they possess an inner certainty that creates trust and inspiration. They walk with purpose because they know where they are going. They listen more than they argue. They encourage more than they criticize. They remain calm when others panic. They carry gratitude instead of constant complaints. This kind of energy becomes magnetic because it offers something rare in today's world: emotional stability. In a society filled with stress, insecurity, and endless comparison, a peaceful person naturally stands out. Their confidence is not rooted in arrogance but in quiet assurance. They do not need to dominate every conversation because they understand that strength does not require constant proof. Their life itself becomes the evidence. The energy you radiate is shaped by the thoughts you repeatedly entertain. If your mind is constantly focused on rejection, betrayal, failure, or fear, those emotions begin influencing the way you interact with others. You become hesitant, suspicious, overly reactive, or desperate for approval without even realizing it. But when your thoughts are grounded in gratitude, purpose, discipline, and possibility, your actions begin reflecting those qualities. You become more patient because you trust the process. You become more generous because you no longer fear scarcity. You become more courageous because your identity is no longer dependent on avoiding mistakes. This transformation cannot be imitated for long because authentic energy always reveals itself through consistent behavior. People are drawn toward those who make them feel safe, inspired, respected, and uplifted. That attraction is rarely created by perfection. It is created by authenticity. This is why choosing peace becomes one of the most powerful decisions you can make. Peace is not weakness. It is strength under control. It is the ability to remain centered even when circumstances try to shake your confidence. Imagine the freedom of no longer reacting emotionally to every criticism or disappointment. Imagine refusing to let another person's mood determine your own. Imagine waking up each day with the quiet confidence that your purpose is greater than temporary setbacks. That kind of emotional stability becomes incredibly attractive because it reflects someone who has mastered themselves rather than trying to control everyone else. The strongest people are not those who conquer others. They are those who conquer fear, insecurity, resentment, and self-doubt within themselves. As your energy changes, the people around you inevitably respond differently. Some will feel inspired by your growth and want to become part of your journey. Others may feel uncomfortable because your confidence reminds them of the changes they have been avoiding. Not everyone will celebrate your transformation, and that is perfectly normal. Your responsibility is not to make everyone comfortable. Your responsibility is to remain faithful to the person you are becoming. The right relationships will naturally align with your new direction, while unhealthy connections may quietly fade away. Do not fear this process. Every meaningful transformation requires leaving behind environments that no longer support your growth. What feels like loss today often becomes the foundation for greater opportunities tomorrow. Then comes the remarkable turning point. The same people who once overlooked your value begin noticing your calm confidence. They observe that you no longer chase attention, argue for validation, or compete for acceptance. Instead, you carry yourself with purpose and dignity. They become curious because your peace cannot be explained by external circumstances alone. It is the result of an inner transformation that has reshaped your entire outlook on life. They begin reaching out, asking questions, seeking your presence, and wondering what changed. But by then, your priorities have shifted. You are no longer focused on who is chasing you. You are focused on continuing your journey of growth, purpose, and fulfillment. That is the deeper meaning behind this warning. After this inner rampage of transformation, people may indeed come running toward you, not because you manipulated them, but because genuine confidence, peace, and authenticity possess a quiet magnetic force that cannot be ignored. Yet the greatest reward is not their attention. The greatest reward is waking up every morning, knowing that you have become someone who no longer depends on the opinions, approval, or affection of others to feel complete. Your energy has become your greatest message. Your character has become your greatest attraction. Your peace has become your greatest victory. And when you radiate that kind of unwavering strength, you no longer spend your life chasing what you desire. Instead, you become the kind of person that opportunities, meaningful relationships, and lasting respect naturally move toward. They chase what they thought they lost forever. Life has a remarkable way of revealing the true value of something only after it seems to be gone. This is not because people are naturally unkind, but because familiarity often blinds us to the treasures that quietly exist in our lives. Many people fail to appreciate loyalty until they experience betrayal. They overlook genuine kindness until they encounter selfishness. They ignore consistent love until they are surrounded by temporary affection. The same principle often applies to you. There may have been moments when your efforts were taken for granted, your sincerity was overlooked, or your presence was treated as though it would always be available. Those experiences can leave deep wounds if you allow them to define your identity. But they can also become the beginning of your greatest transformation if you choose to respond differently. Instead of allowing disappointment to harden your heart, allow it to strengthen your character. Instead of becoming obsessed with proving others wrong, become committed to proving yourself right about the incredible potential that has always existed within you. That is where the real victory begins. The most powerful people are not those who spend their lives trying to make others regret their decisions. They are the ones who become so focused on growth that they no longer need revenge to feel successful. There is a profound freedom in reaching a place where your happiness is no longer tied to whether someone apologizes, returns, or finally recognizes your worth. Imagine waking up each morning excited about your own purpose instead of wondering who is thinking about you. Imagine spending your energy building dreams instead of replaying old disappointments. That shift changes everything because it redirects your attention from what you cannot control to what you can. You cannot force another person to value you, but you can become someone who values themselves so deeply that you never again settle for less than you deserve. That quiet confidence becomes the foundation upon which every healthy relationship, meaningful opportunity, and lasting achievement is built. As you continue growing, something interesting begins to happen. The people who once assumed you would always remain the same start noticing that you have changed. They see a calmness in your eyes that was not there before. They hear certainty in your voice where insecurity once existed. They notice that you no longer react emotionally to every disappointment or seek constant reassurance from those around you. Instead of chasing approval, you are pursuing purpose. Instead of demanding attention, you are creating value. Instead of living for the opinions of others, You are guided by principles that remain steady regardless of circumstances. This transformation cannot remain hidden forever. Authentic growth always leaves visible evidence. Just as a tree naturally bears fruit after years of unseen development, your character eventually begins producing qualities that others cannot ignore. People recognize wisdom because it creates peace. They recognize confidence because it remains humble. They recognize strength because it does not need to intimidate anyone. It is often at this stage that those who once overlooked you begin reaching out again. They remember the consistency you offered, the encouragement you gave, the integrity you lived by, and the genuine care you showed. They realize that what they once considered ordinary was actually rare. The world is full of temporary attractions, but authentic character is increasingly difficult to find. When people encounter someone who possesses emotional maturity, kindness, discipline, and unwavering self-respect, they begin to understand the value of what they almost lost. Yet here is the beautiful irony. By the time they begin chasing you, your deepest need for their pursuit has already disappeared. You are no longer waiting for someone else to complete your story, because you have discovered that your life was never meant to depend on another person's recognition. Their return may become a pleasant surprise, but it is no longer the source of your joy. Your joy comes from knowing that you remained faithful to your own growth even when no one was applauding your progress. This is the greatest lesson of all. The purpose of personal transformation is not to make people regret leaving you. The purpose is to ensure that you never abandon yourself again. Too often, people sacrifice their peace, compromise their values, and neglect their own dreams simply to keep someone else happy. They lose themselves while trying to hold on to relationships that were never meant to define their identity. But true freedom begins when you understand that your worth was never created by another person's acceptance, and it cannot be destroyed by another person's rejection. Your value exists because of who you are, not because of who chooses to recognize it. Once this truth settles into your heart, fear begins losing its power. You stop clinging to relationships out of desperation. You stop chasing opportunities from a mindset of lack. You stop measuring your future by your past disappointments. Instead, you move forward with confidence, knowing that what truly belongs in your life will align with the person you are becoming. So when the title says, "After this rampage, they'll chase you like never before," remember that the greatest chase is not the one happening behind you. It is the journey happening within you. The real rampage is the relentless destruction of limiting beliefs, unhealthy attachments, fear, insecurity, resentment, and self-doubt. It is the daily decision to choose discipline over excuses, gratitude over bitterness, courage over comfort, and purpose over distraction. As you continue walking this path, people may indeed come looking for you. Opportunities may appear that once seemed impossible. Respect may replace rejection. Admiration may replace indifference. But these outcomes are no longer your destination. They are simply the natural consequences of becoming the strongest, wisest, and most authentic version of yourself. And when that day arrives, you will realize that the greatest reward was never making others chase you. The greatest reward was becoming someone who no longer needed to chase anyone at all. In that moment, you step into a life defined not by fear or approval, but by confidence, peace, purpose, and the unshakable knowledge that the person you fought so hard to become was worth every challenge along the way.